It's Rhiannon Clay, and today I'm going to be going over patterns of conflict interaction. First, to go over what we're going to be looking at, first, going to be negative reciprocity, demand withdrawal, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and then accommodation. To start, the principle of negative reciprocity states that aggression or negative expressions beget more of the same. Hostile behaviors reciprocate more hostile behavior, and then fighting fire with fire. So to me, this is when someone says, when they go low, I go lower. This does happen quite a bit because we're just kind of used to jeering insults at each other. And then, actually, on the other hand, there is positive reciprocity, which is a pattern where partners engage in cooperative or immediate behaviors. This would be complimenting each other, things like that. And then, actually, more tumultuous couples obviously engage in more negative reciprocity. And then, couples that engage in positive reciprocity when the conversations are or actions are perceived as more affectionate. Um, so there are methods to negative reciprocity. The first one is going to be gunny sacking, which occurs when people store up old grievances and then dump them on their partner during conflict. So this would be me bringing up maybe something that my partner did in 2022 and then bringing up now in the argument that we're having to kind of distract them and take the heat off me. And then there is kitchen sinking, which is similar to gunny sacking. But instead of bringing up a grievance, it's more about bringing up an old argument in order to distract them. And because there's going to be too many issues to deal with at once. So this would be me bringing up maybe an argument that I had with my partner in 2021 and then bringing up now to, like I said, take the heat off me and then it's kind of used to manipulate them. And then an additional diversion would be bringing in a third party. And a third party is used for validation and to help win the argument. And the four ways people bring up third parties, I'm so sorry, are first mentioning what others said. So this would be me saying, oh, well, Joe said this about you. And then there's bad mouthing, which would be me bad mouthing my partner's family or friends, something like that. And then there is comparing, which should be me comparing my partner to someone else, which I feel like happens quite a bit, just because, especially with parents, because I see a lot of times parents will compare their children to someone else's kids that they see online or their friends, something like that. And then the third or the fourth and final one is telling others or posting online. I do feel like posting online is getting a little bit more prevalent just because now we have these celebrities who are like these little micro niche influencers and they tend to post their information online. Like literally it could be 5 hours after their breakup and they're online posting, oh, I'm single, I'm outside, and my girlfriend did this, and this, and this to me. And then in addition to that, there is also button pushing, which is bringing up a sore subject, which is going to make someone triggered. Which is also, like I said, these are all kind of manipulation tactics. And then there are also empty threats. And empty threats to me are threats that in the future might not be taken seriously or make the person paranoid. If I threaten to break up with my boyfriend and I don't do it, either he could see that as me lying and not going to do it ever and just saying that to kind of make him scared. And then also it could be seen or it could kind of make him paranoid and make him worry that if every time we argue, am I going to break up with him? Like, is that going to happen? And then there is mind reading, which is when people assume to know the feelings of others or their actions or their motives, so jumping to conclusions. And then there's is such thing as a magic ratio, which for positive couples or more satisfied couples is a 5-to-1 ratio for positive to negative interactions. And then for unhappy couples, it is going to be a 1-to-1 ratio. So next is going to be demand withdrawal, and the demand withdrawal interaction process is a persistent pattern that occurs when one person in a relationship usually wants to talk about problems or issues, and the other person wants to avoid talking about those issues. So this actually is more apt to happen in married couples. So one side may prefer to be or may prefer some autonomy, and while the other side wants to be closer. Wives are most likely the ones who are going to be the demanding party, and then husbands are more apt to withdraw. But unfortunately, increased withdrawal can lead to more demands, while increased demands can lead to more withdrawal. So it's kind of like a constant push pull situation, which is very unhealthy. It's just constantly a lose lose. So there is such thing as punctuation, and this is when both partners think that their negative communication is caused by the other person's behavior. The book gave an example which stated, "I think that I act demanding because you withdraw, and you think that you withdraw because I act demanding." So, like I said previously, it is like it's a constant push pull, push pull. So the demand withdrawal is actually more persistent in relationships where are more prevalent in relationships where violence is present, so very like abusive relationships, but also in these relationships, sometimes the woman is actually, or the person who's being abused is more likely or less likely to bring up what's going on just because they don't want to be abused. But this could also lead to someone maybe like trying to do better or withdraw from being abused. So, in order to fix this in a more healthy couple, it would be for both sides to compromise. The person who is demanding should try to be more patient and more understanding of why their spouse may want to withdraw from them. And then the withdrawing party should try to listen and then try to be more considerate and more receptive to their spouse trying to demand from them. And then we are going to get into the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and that is a destructive conflict pattern that includes the following four behaviors, which are complaints and criticism, contempt and disgust, defensiveness, and then stonewalling. Criticisms are personal attacks that blame someone else for a problem. Complaints are communication about a specific behavior or behaviors that a person finds annoying or problematic. Contempt is communication that conveys an air of superiority and often conveys a lack of respect, so being condescending. And the defensiveness is communication designed to defend oneself against attacks by deflecting blame to someone or something else. And then stonewalling is when a person builds a metaphorical wall around his or herself, shuts down, and then withdraws from interaction with another person. So, divorced couples are more likely to communicate through the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which is kind of why they're divorced. They couldn't figure out how to effectively communicate with each other. And then complaints are seen as healthier than criticism because criticisms are personal attacks, while complaints can be something that's validated and is actually a real ongoing issue within a relationship. And then contempt can be seen as condescending. Contempt is also really easy to spot in speech just because it is someone making insults at you or making a mockery of what you're saying involving the conflict. And then for being defensive, there are multiple ways to be defensive, such as making excuses, counter complaints, whining, lying. And then stonewalling is walking away from conflict or avoiding speaking about the conflict that is ensuing. I feel like I engage in stonewalling quite a lot just because I like to walk away from the situation to think about it. But I could see how that is unhealthy and how I should try to be more accommodating. And that leads us into finally accommodation. And the accommodation principle is something that occurs when people are able to overcome the initial tendency to retaliate in response to negative behavior and instead engage in cooperative behavior or communication to maintain their relationship. So to me, this is compromising, going to therapy, stuff like that. So people tend to withdraw or retaliate when their partner shows negative behavior. And then accommodation occurs when people are able to overlook or move past these negative actions. Cooperative communication is key. So this can be seen as learning to compromise or going to couples therapy. And then couples in happy or satisfying relationships tend to engage in accommodation more than those who are unsatisfied. So if people are together and they have a healthy relationship and they might be going through a, a stage of arguing or just a stage of conflict and tension, they're more apt to try to accommodate and just try to improve what they have going on because they do truly love each other than those who are unsatisfied or uncommitted, where it's just more likely they're going to try to move on and end the relationship. So to get into our engagement questions, it's kind of a two-parter. So have you used any of these interactions recently in conflicts? And if so, did you feel regretful afterwards? And then if you were accommodating, how did that make you feel? And did it improve the relationship? So to answer for me, like I said, I have done stonewalling. Even recently I've done that because I had an argument with my best friend and I kind of just ghosted her for a couple days, and then I had came back and I did kind of feel regretful just because looking back and reading this, I felt like I should have expressed how I felt immediately instead of waiting, just because that can kind of add on to the tension. um, but I think that I also have to learn how to effectively communicate how I feel to people immediately without sounding mean or coming off the wrong way. So please let me know how you feel, and thank you so much for listening and watching me.